Well, welcome back, everyone. If you've been with us for one or more of our earlier sessions, and welcome to you if this is your very first one. I'll give you a quick recap. These are the sessions that we've done over the past couple of months. We started with an IP optical overview. In other words, what are the various elements, sort of in broad strokes, of a modern or current IP and optical transport network. We dove into DWDM and spent an entire session just on DWDM and how it works and the benefits that it provides from a cost-effective and scalability standpoint. We had a week where we talked about layer 2 and layer 3 design elements and the benefits that both of those bring. And then last session, we kind of wrapped up the technical hardware side and talked about layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3, why we would deploy one over another in a particular area, what combinations are beneficial, and so forth. So this week, it's kind of a logical wrap up of the whole thing to say, great, I have this wonderful network, now how do I manage it? Right, and so obviously, in the term OA&M, there are parts of that story, but there's a lot more to it. Those of you that run networks today, you know what I'm talking about. There is everything from trucks to personnel, and then in detail, individual alarm monitoring and troubleshooting and so forth. So we're going to spend our time this morning talking about one way to handle these things. There are many of them out there, but this is the one that I think we're most comfortable with. It's not only our solution, but it's one that's been born out of decades of actually operating networks, managing networks, and making sure that all of that happens appropriately to ultimately provide a cost-effective solution that gives you everything you need without a lot of fluff that you don't need. So you've seen this diagram before if you've been with me for earlier sessions. My Frisbee diagram here. At the bottom is optical transport. That sort of represents layer 1 in the OSI model. So we've got layer 1 physical transport on the bottom, typically where we see DWDM. Above that is the layer 2, layer 3 switching and routing. Above that, of course, is where our management is. And, we use fancier terms today. One is orchestration. That implies some form of task repetitiveness, right? Things that we can automate. It also is defined by software control of a lot of the features that we used to do manually. And so if I can just summarize what orchestration means these days, it's really making your jobs easier. That's all it is, right? It's kind of a fancy term. It's more of a marketing term that you'll hear from virtually every vendor out there. But really, the purpose of it is to make your lives easier, right? Automating some tasks, making other tasks visual instead of command line, which allows you to accomplish them much more easily and error-free. And all of this comes down to day-to-day management, right? Once you've got your network in place, that's all well and good. Now you have to manage it. So here's an example of a customer, just to kind of set the stage for you. This customer is likely bigger than many of your networks, but then some of you may have networks even bigger than this. This is a wireless provider out west here in the United States, covering 4 different states, 150 coming up on 200 ribbon nodes, shelves out there, 2,000 kilometers of lit fiber, 1,000 cell towers, and then pretty stringent requirements in terms of SLAs, low latency, being able to track failover traffic when and if that happens. and then homing all traffic to dual data centers, soon to be 3 data centers that we're going to have to replicate traffic to. And so how do we manage all of those shelves? Importantly as well, 2,000 kilometers of fiber, right? That's a lot to cover, even with a big staff with multiple dispatch centers. How do we get a handle on all of that so that our customers are served appropriately? And of course, we fend off any competitive issues with our neighbors poaching our customers. In other words, let's keep our customers happy, and then they'll stay with us. So how do we do all of that? So our answer for that is a solution called Muse. The purpose of Muse is to use the very latest software capabilities. A few terms like north and southbound APIs. An API is an application programming interface. This is basically a socket on the software that allows you to plug other pieces of software into it, right? Sometimes those can be built by the original manufacturer, which would be us. Sometimes they can be third party. The idea here is that there is a tremendous amount of data and intelligence wrapped up in a management system. That information is very valuable for, say, a billing system. So if we have an API northbound, meaning outside of our product, that then can be used by a billing system or an OSS, BSS, or what have you, then that facilitates your environment, right? As perhaps you've heard me say before in earlier talks, we believe at Ribbon that we need to work and play well with other vendors. There's never going to be a situation where you have one vendor all the way across your environment, from hardware to software and so forth. And so each of us as vendors working for your business need to expect that we're going to have to work together. And we need to be building those interfaces so that we can do that. That's a good example of the design philosophy behind Muse and where we're going with it. The other major aspect that you'll see over the next few slides is that it's visual. Now, for those of you that are command line interface folks, no problem, got you covered. We have a full featured command line interface. You can do anything you want on the shelf with the CLI. That's not going away. However, it is fairly common knowledge that it can be beneficial to have pictures, right? And as we go through these slides, I think you'll see what I mean. Remember, we're trying to combine a network that's not only geographically large, but deep in terms of layer 1 transport with DWDM and all that goes into that, all the optical physics. And then layer 2 Ethernet switching, which provides a lot more feature-rich traffic engineering environment, where you can start moving traffic and prioritizing it and identifying it and handling it in different ways, depending on its priority. And then, of course, layer 3 routing, which can do virtually anything on your network, but we typically constrain to areas where you absolutely have to have layer 3 devices because routers are expensive. And so not only are we looking geographically, but we're looking sort of in that third dimension of the OSI model. And so topology means a lot more than just a 2-degree map, or a 2-dimensional map. In my lower right-hand corner, you'll see a quick line graph example of a 3D view. The reason why this could be important is because when you get an error somewhere, when you get an alarm, there are dependencies in this network. For instance, if you cut fiber, well, then neither layer 2 or layer 3 traffic is passing, obviously, right? That's why we build protection in to go around physical fiber. So if you get a fiber cut or a transceiver goes out and the light drops, well, there's no reason to go and check your routers and find out why they had to reconverge, right? The problem is not at layer 3. It's not at layer 2 with Ethernet. it's down on the physical layer. So that's one example of where a 3D view can really come in handy. And that visibility, those visibility tools, where at a glance you can see exactly what's wrong, as opposed to having to go through and troubleshoot in a tabular fashion. Being able to optimize your resource. Now, you're putting a lot of money into your networks, right? That is a big CapEx spend. Your OpEx should, at the very least, help you optimize all the money that you've sunk into your physical plant, right? OpEx is a cost. We obviously have to consider that ongoing cost, but part of that part of recouping that OpEx is that it gives you more bang for your buck from your CapEx investment. So from an optimization standpoint, for restoration, appropriate restoration, not simply saying, well, let's just pick an extra path, but really analyzing those additional, say, protection paths. Which one is optimal? If you have multiple protection paths, then setting them up in priority, things like that. Day-to-day maintenance, troubleshooting, we'll get into some of that in upcoming slides. And then ongoing data feeds, right? Continuous streaming telemetry, allowing you to pull data from individual bins, not only current data, but then keeping that data historically so you can do trend analysis over time. So one of the most basic elements of OA&M, of course, is simply keeping track of your alarms, right? So an alarm can mean any of a number of things, from your fan filters are dirty, you need to clean them or swap them out, to you've got a major outage ongoing, right? So the visibility of those alarms really is critical in terms of that mean time to repair, right? Because the clock, once you get an alarm, the clock starts ticking, right? And the system's going to keep track of that clock. So if there's an outage, then that obviously needs to be moved way up on the priority list. People need to be notified, and then action will need to be taken. So of course, as with many of these, there is a prioritization schedule for your alarms. It's customizable, so you could decide which alarms to suppress and which ones to elevate. Graphically, it will give you those alarms not only on the 2D topology, but then each diagram that I'm going to show you in this slide and slides upcoming are all context sensitive and intelligent. When all that simply means is, if I see something on the screen I'm interested in, I double click on it, right? Or I click once and I right click and pull up a menu. A couple of ways to pull that up. And so you can dive down into interesting content on your screen. One way you can do that, very simple way that you're seeing on the screen right now, is to dive into a node that has a particular alarm on it. You will get the exact shelf diagram, and then whichever element is in alarm will show you with these little red triangles which one is in alarm. And then you double click on that card and you will get the card view, and it will show you which ports are in alarm. And then you can double click on the port and pull that exact report. So you can do it that way. Of course, there's always tabular data. You can look at your alarms like at the bottom of this larger screen here. You can prioritize them based on severity, based on the time that they've been up, if you will, the time that they've been in an alarm condition, and so forth. So lots of ways to sort of access that data and pull it out. What you're not seeing, of course, is that there is a full alarm forwarding methodology and capability where we can email, we can text, forward that information via SNMP or other methods to a manager of manager if you've got one of those. A lot of folks use SolarWinds for kind of a management screen. So all of those extensible links are there because the data does you no good if you're not aware of it, right? So we have to be able to push that out to where you're looking. Okay, so Moving on to other screens, other visualization tools. Again, 2-degree is or two-dimensional visualization is usually what folks like to look at. You can bring up 3D where it's important to look at 3D structures where you've got multiple layers of data moving across a particular location or geographic region. It's also worth mentioning that each of these screens are customizable, right? This is what you might call a dashboard. And so if you've got multiple people looking at the network, each one is likely looking at something different, or is interested in something different, or is responsible for a different part of the network, be it layer 2 Ethernet or a geographic area or a particular customer's traffic. However you want to slice and dice what's going on in your network with bar charts, tabular data, topology maps, whatever you choose to put on your dashboard can be customized by user, and then that will stay persistent for you. That you obviously can go elsewhere and bring up other screens, but if when you first log in you want to see, you know, the big board, right, of everything's going on in your network, looking at a thumbnail of, you know, red versus green usage and so forth, then you can customize that the way you wish. Again, each of these diagrams is context sensitive and smart. And so, for instance, if you look in the upper right hand corner, there is a dashboard of a particular user here. In the upper middle is a pie chart. This, I'm not sure what this particular one was called up for, but let's just say as an example, this is the top 5 users on a particular route, right? Top 5 customer services. And then it's measuring by bandwidth. So if we want to look at it and we want to dive into that particular customer service, I can choose the green one or the orange one. I can double click and it will dive me into that, and it will show me that particular customer, that particular service, and then all of the associated statistics with it, right? So really a very valuable and intuitive tool to show you what's going on in your network. Again, the network, as impressive as a network can be in its hardware, it's only as valuable as the operator, and that operator is only as valuable as they can be when they have all the data they need, right? And so that's the purpose of Muse, is to be able to drive the car that you put in place. Okay. Now we're getting into that automation, right? Using that orchestration term, right? And then starting to use the software to provide an easier workflow for the human beings that have to manage this network, right? So as an example, this is a set of default templates that are provided with the software. And so these are common constructs in terms of what we see in the industry today. So in the upper middle, you've got an IPTV service, right? So this sets up a layer 3 VPN over LDP with user-defined RT values. And so this already gives you all of the tools you need to go and set that service up. And it's literally click and drag, drop it in, and then fill in the blanks for which customer this is, what bandwidth you need, any SLA markers, YDOT 1731 testing, and so forth, right? So each one of these is we've taken our best shot at creating very common templates, but then of course there is a template design tool, so you can either take these and modify them or create your own to suit your own service environment. So just to kind of walk through it, I think the benefits are pretty obvious, but if you have say a bronze, silver, and gold type service offering, then when orders come in For new customer services, it's as simple as grabbing the bronze or grabbing the silver, dropping it in, and then filling in the blanks. This does a couple of things. One, it saves you a lot of time in terms of having to create things from scratch each time. Number two, it eliminates fat finger errors because everything's already done for you except for, identifying this particular service, right? So you can repeat these tasks over and over and over again, and they'll be exactly the same every single time. So this obviously increases your customer satisfaction because your time to turn someone's service up is dramatically shortened. And then, of course, it saves you time and trouble if there are no errors on it, right? Service comes up, customer's happy, good to go, move on, right? So these are customizable in virtually every way that you do it manually today. In terms of managing SLAs, creating that customer experience that they're paying for, and then of course they're expecting. Keeping a handle on hundreds or thousands of kilometers of lit fiber is obviously a challenge, right? You've got trucks, you've got OTDR meters, you've got splice kits and techs and all sorts of things, right? But ultimately what it comes down to is your fiber, your outside plant is kind of at the mercy. And so when things go wrong, when someone decides to cut a new trench, or when some other issue happens, aerial fiber gets blown down in a storm, what have you, then the next few minutes are critical. You need to know immediately when that thing happens. And then on top of that, you need to be able to dispatch right to where the problem is and get it fixed as soon as possible. Anytime troubleshooting is not in effect wasted time, but the less troubleshooting time you have, finding out where that problem is, reflects well on you, right? Because your mean time to repair obviously goes down, right? And customer sat increases. All right. So two particular tools that I'm going to bring to your attention here that are really highly valuable in terms of this. The first one is our signal health management. So signal health basically looks at every signal, every light signal anywhere on your network, and then provides all of the statistics that you typically are interested in terms of transmit, receive, support, what those light levels are, if there's any variability there, signal to noise ratios, where DWDM is concerned, your dispersion issues, both polarization mode and chromatic dispersion, and then as well on the DWDM side, what we call nonlinearities, right? Other errors that can take place. Generally, these issues can be engineered out at the beginning of a network build, but outside plant changes, right? Temperature changes, moisture changes. Sometimes people decide to roll dump trucks over shallow direct buried fiber, and that causes problems. You just never know what's going to happen, right? And so the ability to monitor all of those signals for all of their critical metrics, and then set alarm thresholds on them. So if over time, say for instance, your transmit level is dropping, now it's still passing traffic, and so you haven't got an outage alarm yet, but it is declining, it is degrading over time, something you might want to take a look at. And so this gives you that extra visibility at a deeper level to understand what's happening, not just now, but over time, so you can do preventive maintenance, right, to avoid outages altogether. The other tool is our fiber health management, commonly known in the industry as OTDR. This is a system that we can put in place from the beginning of the life of your network, and it will shoot OTDR everywhere in your network. that it's positioned, and it'll provide an OTDR trace for you on demand. So this can be done on day one to create a birth certificate of your fiber plant. But then if there is an outage, then of course you can shoot another OTDR, and it will tell you exactly where that issue is. We have customers that have their fiber on KMZ files, Google Earth files. They may have them in some other type of geographic information system or GIS. We are able to help you map those to either street maps or topographic maps for those of you in more wilderness areas where you don't really have street addresses and so forth, but pole numbers or lat longs. So being able to visualize exactly where that error is, where the break is, within a meter or two, is obviously critical, right? Because then once you have a detected failure, you're not still troubleshooting. You've found where the failure is, typically within 5 to 10 minutes of looking at your console. You know exactly where that error is. And so, yeah, you're going to roll a truck, but you're going to roll a splice team to go out there and fix it, as opposed to a couple of trucks, one to either CO on either side of the problem span, with OTDR meters to try and figure out which one of those fibers is a problem, and then, only then, after an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, are you sending a splicer out there to fix it. So this can really dramatically cut your time to repair out on your outside plant. It works by sending signals out over the fiber, as any OTDR does. And then providing a trace, very much like the cartoon you see here in the upper right. It looks a lot more. This is a cartoon. OTDR splices look a little different than this, but you can, after you've spliced it, obviously you can shoot another OTDR trace and then find out, how much was that splice loss, right? Is it good enough, or do they need to redo it, right? So really a valuable tool. Again, it goes in place and in service from day one. So that's what we call Muse. Another aspect besides the software and the management tools that are provided to you to manage your own network, occasionally you need to bring more or other people in. Certainly when there's an issue, you need to be able to call the manufacturer's technical assistance center. We call it the action line. And then get an expert online immediately who knows who you are, who has a diagram of your network, who knows exactly how to repair that issue, and if you wish, has a VPN into your server so they can log in, take control of the screen, and then either walk you through the issue or just or handle it for you. Right? What I've just described is what our Fort Lauderdale-based team does for you. So this is standard support and maintenance type services. We do it very differently than most of the other vendors out there. Number one, very highly experienced. Most of the folks on the team have 15 or more years experience. So they're extremely good. These are the tier 3 people that you would get at another vendor. Well, we don't make you go through tier 1 and tier 2 and explain your problem every time you get somebody else on the phone, right? You're going to call in, you're going to get a tier 3 level engineer right off the bat, and they're going to handle your case all the way through. If they have to pull other resources in, going all the way to the design team and R&D and those folks, then they'll handle all of that. And they'll bring those resources to the phone with you, but they will stay on the phone with you. You'll have one person that walks you all the way through. It is 24/7. We handle, when we do projects for you, we handle it turnkey. It's customizable. So if you want to do the rack and stack, that's perfectly fine. or we can do everything and then hand the keys over to you after implementation. We provide full training services either on your site remotely, or for those of you that would like to come down to Fort Lauderdale, I recommend January and February. It's a great place to be down there. The other resources that we have in Florida are a comprehensive lab and staging facility. The manager of this, the vice president in charge of this entire group, likes to say that my lab is your lab, right? So we have all of the devices, the cards and pluggables and so forth that we sell. We've also got some third-party equipment. We've also had customers send their devices to us. We'll install them, we'll configure it, and you can come down and sit side by side, or we can do it remotely with cameras and screenshots and so forth. But we can duplicate an issue. We can do interoperability testing, you name it. There is no charge for that. That is simply a service that we provide because, again, our philosophy is we have to work and play well with others. Doesn't do anyone any good if your access devices, your GPON devices, are having a problem talking to your backbone, right? That has to be worked out. We will take responsibility to provide the lab for that, so that you can get that taken care of. We stage all of our gear that comes in. It comes from the factory to us. We put it all in the rack. We burn it in based on how long you want it to be burned in. We will pre-provision it in terms of protocols, IP addresses, host names, and so forth. And then we'll repackage it, palletize it, and ship it to your choice of locations so that it is ready to go when our deployment team gets there. It's a very efficient way to do things. We take care of DOAs and anything else that needs to be done. So your network actually has already been up and has communicated to itself, right? Your nodes have talked to each other before it ever gets put into your lab, into your environment. So it's a great way to do things. Again, 100% US based. We don't forward calls to another time zone, right? Everything is done out of Florida. So this concludes today's brief little tech talk. In terms of where we go from here, let me just hit a couple of these high points. We do have another tech series upcoming later this fall, but from a current status standpoint, we are still providing equipment on a 10 to 12 week delivery. We have managed through the supply chain issues quite well, and really have no issues delivering. If you've got government contracts or government grants and loans and so forth, and your calendar is slipping by without progress because of the inability of a vendor to deliver, give us a call. We've certainly been able to help some customers with that. Regarding the government grants and so forth, RUS, USDA money, and other programs, often there will be a Buy America Act compliance clause in there. This is where the gear has to be, in broad strokes. My disclaimer is I'm not a lawyer, right? Import-export lawyer, but in broad strokes, it's 51% or more of a particular product has to be manufactured, constructed, compiled, completed within the United States or a friendly country of origin. These are countries like the United Kingdom, Israel, Norway, Canada. You can probably guess the rest of them, right? So they are equivalent in terms of things actually being made here in America for a compliance standpoint. And we can meet that standard, so no issues there. And then finally, those of you that have been with me for one or more weeks, you've seen this slide before. If this is your first time or you missed out on the opportunity to register before, I'd like to invite you to our tech forum, which is going to happen the beginning of November on the 2nd and 3rd. The venue is the Westin Galleria, which is in North Dallas, a short drive from DFW Airport. The Westin is a beautiful facility attached to a big shopping mall. So if significant others or families want to come along, it's a great part of Dallas. Lots of restaurants and things to do there. We're going to have product demos of current and future technologies, things that are in development that we'd like to show you. We're going to have our product management folks and engineers, the smart guys, are going to be there on the floor, either giving talks or available to chat with in and around the demo area. Our executives are going to be there. So if you've ever wanted to pin down a CEO and ask them hard questions, then you'll have the opportunity to do that, because they'll all be there and certainly willing and pleased to talk with you. The link for registration is down below, on the lower left. There is no cost for this. The hotel room is obviously on the attendees, but there is no cost to attend the tech forum. However, there are limited seats, right? Limited seating. So it's first come, first serve. We do have a few seats left. So if you've been thinking about it, I recommend getting on the phone or logging in and sending in your registration. For those of you that are golfers, then you'll be interested on the 1st. There's a golf scramble that's going to take place. For those of you that don't know Dallas, Texas, November is probably one of the nicest times of the year in North Texas. So I expect that'll be a very pleasant golf outing. Okay, well, there you go. That's our tech forum. Certainly, we'd love to see you there. If you have any questions, let us know. But you should find most of that information on that link below. All right. Well, with that, Lance, I will turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I did put the link to the tech forum in the chat. So if you want to just click that and take a look at the website there, you can register right from the website. Super easy and straightforward. We'd love to have you all there. We did have a couple questions come through. One of those was about the replays of the Tech Talk webinars. So I'm going to put 2 links also in the chat for everybody. The first one is the landing page to the original set of 5 webinars. You can see all the replays there. Today's replay will be up there later this afternoon. So check those out at any time you'd like. If you happen to miss one of them, you can see the replays there. And then we have a new set of Tech Talk webinars coming this fall. There's 3. I believe one even begins next week, if I'm not mistaken. Couple cloud and edge topics and IP optical as well. So that second link there is to the new Tech Talk webinars for the fall. You do have to sign up for those separately from this first set of webinars. So take a look at those. And then another question we had come through was about the OTDR. You had mentioned that the OTDR is in service. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so in service means that you can operate the OTDR while your traffic continues to run on the same fiber. It does not take its own dark fiber. The way that this works is that the OTDR signal operates at 1610 nanometers. Those of you that are familiar with GWDM, but even gray wave optics are right around the 1550 nanometer range. And so, you know, your traffic is down here and OTDR is far enough spaced away in terms of the wavelength that it uses that they, even if there's some variability there, they never cross, right? They never, there's no interference between them. And so we can, you literally can have an OTDR on every span of your network that you can operate with a push of a button, and it is completely non-service affecting. The way that I guess the physical way that this happens in terms of the cards that you use, there's an OTDR signal generator card. It's got 8 ports on it, and any of those 8 ports can be used at any time. So you can shoot in 8 different directions, or if you want to use that in pairs, if you like to shoot both fibers of a pair, then you can do 4 pairs, any combination of the two. The range of that 1610 nanometer OTDR signal is about 120 kilometers. And so we can put passive filters in place if there are nodes anywhere along that 120 kilometers, so the signal doesn't stop there. So another way to say that is the OTDR solution that we put in place on a data network does not care about what's inside the COs or inside the cabinets. We express lane the OTDR signal around any sites that happen to fall on that 120 kilometers so that we get the full 120 kilometer visibility from the OTDR system. It can be operated in a unidirectional format, so you don't need opposing DWDM signals, OTDR signals on the same fiber. I can run 120 kilometers and get a reading all the way across that. So simply put, when it comes to deciding how many signal generators you need, it's actually a lot fewer than you would think, because number one, they can shoot in many directions. So if you put them in a hub, you can cover every one of the outside plant fibers. They go a long way, and I can shoot, if I have, say, a 240 kilometer span, I can shoot from this end and I can shoot from this end, and I can cover the whole thing, right? So lots of tips and tricks that we can put in place to minimize the cost there. I'll just mention from a cost standpoint, the OTDR solution in its entirety, from a software and hardware standpoint, is priced attractively enough that the second time you've used it, you pretty much pay for it, right? In terms of the outage time you save and the minimizing of truck rolls and so forth, right? So and we expect it'll be in your network for 10 years at a minimum, right, if not more. So it's really kind of a no-brainer, right? If you're putting a ribbon network in, the OTDR is really pretty easy to make an argument for.
Okay, thanks, Jack.
Sure.
Didn't have any other questions, so just a reminder to take a look at the chat there and click on any of those links before we go away. But that does wrap us up for this series. Appreciate everybody's attendance and time, and Jack and Drew and Elizabeth, all the expertise. We'll get a replay link sent out to you by the end of today, as well as a copy of the slides. So look for that in your inbox. And if you haven't already received an invite for the fall series, be on the lookout for that. We've already sent one. I'm sure we'll be sending many others, but we look forward to having you on that set of Tech Talks as well. So thanks, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Thanks.